It gives me special pleasure to speak with you about the Psalms, because the Psalms really, as Sister Kasha was already saying, connects our two communities and connects our two religions. Last week I spent some time in Abu Ghosh, and I visited the Benedictine monastery. The nuns and the monks invited me for Vespers, which took place in French, and it was such a soothing and such a moving moment for me when they sang the psalm, which really unites our two communities. My personal story with the Psalms began when I was 7 years old. I was raised in a secular family. When I was 7, my father came back from the war, from the Yom Kippur War in 1973, and he brought with him a little book with, very simple one with plastic covering, green plastic covering that the military rabbi gave the soldiers, and my father didn't have much to do with it, but he gave it to me. And I spent every night reading in the Psalms and finding a lot of wisdom and spirituality in it. So that was my path, as it were, to the rabbinate and definitely to the Psalms. So thank you very much, Adam. What I would like to do now is to give an overview introduction about the role of Psalms in Jewish liturgy and ritual, and then go a little bit more deeply into a specific question that is related to the topic of this conference, which is Psalm and Peace. All right, and I don't know if we have time for questions or remarks later, but I will be very happy to respond. The Psalms in Jewish liturgy appear in many, many different layers and many different topics. So first of all, we have phrases of the Psalm that are embedded in liturgical blessings or statements. The statements like God who sustains the fallen, somech noflim, who opens the eyes of the blind, pokeach ivrim, phrases from the Psalms that are embedded in the rabbinic text. And I think you know that the rabbinic liturgy or the rabbinic Hebrew is slightly different than the biblical Hebrew. But the liturgy includes some of this poetic language. The next layer is verses, and we can talk about hundreds of verses that are included in different prayers in different places within the Jewish prayer books. And then the next layer or the next level is full Psalms. We have, of the 150 Psalms that are in the book of Psalms, we have at least 60 comprehensive Psalms that are included in the prayers. And then we have sequence of Psalms. We have groups of Psalms that are recited together, for example, when we welcome the Shabbat, on festival days. We have different sequences of Psalms, especially from Book 4 and Book 5. And this is not exactly our topic, but I will mention that the division of the Book of Psalms into 5 books, 5 mini books, was meant maybe deliberately to compare the book of David, of King David, the Psalm is attributed to King David, to the book of Moses, that also has 5 books. This is the 5 books of Torah. So we have a parallelism between Moses and David. Very good. So let's talk a little bit about the different uses the book of Psalms is used within the liturgy. We spoke about different types of citations. Now let's talk about different uses. So first of all, we talk about liturgy in the full sense of the word. And when we talk about liturgy in the full sense of the word, it means that we wrap the psalm or the psalms with a liturgical blessing before and after. This way we make it liturgy in the full sense. Such are the psalms that we sing or recite on festivals, 113 through 118. The next level is liturgy in the broader sense of the word. For example, the psalms that we sing in the welcoming of the Shabbat, they don't have blessings before and after because they are probably a very a relatively later addition, only in the 16th century to the liturgy. So we sing them, but we don't encase them with blessings. The third level would be what I would call a more general supplication. We recite psalms for the healing of the sick. We recite psalms to elevate the soul of a person who departed from this world. There are different ways of dealing with the psalms, and later we will see a more specific example of this. Sometimes we can refer to the recitation of psalms as a personal devotion. If after the pandemic you will have a chance to visit Israel, you will probably see on public transportation a lot of people, mostly women, by the way, who read psalms on the bus or on the train, and each one of them have a daily quota, and they intend to finish the entire book within a month or within a week. But reading the psalm is, in a way, the devotion of them. How shall I say it, maybe not so educated person. And then we can talk about extra liturgical uses, and I will show you an example in a second. So first of all, let's see just broadly different sequences of psalm. We have the morning verses, and we have on weekdays we have these psalms, and on Shabbat we have additional ones. We have a daily psalm, which is a little bit like what I saw in the church on the Vespers, that every day has its own psalm, but I think they have it on a monthly base, and here it's on a weekly base. We will see more of it later. We have the psalms that we say on festivals and new moon. We have the festive Shabbat evening psalms, and we have the Shabbat afternoon psalms, which are the Song of Ascents, Shirei HaMa'alot. Great. So we mentioned reciting psalms for healing. So sometimes, God forbid, we hear about a disaster or something like this. Then very quickly online, people divide the book of Psalms between them. I'll take the first 10 ones, and another person takes the next 10 ones, and you devote yourself to recite these psalms for healing of the sick. That's one thing that is done. And then reciting psalms as paraliturgical practice, we already mentioned it. And sometimes the book itself, the object, is treated as something that is efficacious or beneficial. It is treated as an amulet. So here you see the book of Psalm as a necklace, or sometimes you carry it in your pocket, or you keep it in your car. And a lot of people believe that it brings good fortune or good luck with it. And sometimes the shape of the psalm is also looked as a beneficial, is viewed as a beneficial psalm. This is what is called the menorah psalm, Psalm 67, that has 7 verses. And they are often depicted as the branches of the temple menorah. The middle one is a bit longer, so it's like the leg. And it is printed in a lot of sidurim, especially Sephardic sidurim, and in many synagogues you can see it on the walls. So here, this is contemporary ones, and here you see it from more ancient manuscripts, and this is with a gratitude to Professor Stefan Reif, who provided them to me. This is a Sephardic one, the one on the left, and a Romanian one on the right. Italian one, sorry. And just to give you a quick overview on the daily psalms, these are the psalms that the Levites used to sing in the temple. Every day has its own flavor in a way, because if you think about the sacrificial work that the priests, the Kohanim, and the Levites did in the temple, every day it was basically the same. But every day received its own flavor through the special psalm that was recited on that day. So you can see at the end of all the slaughtering and blood sprinkling, and I'm vegetarian, so it's very painful to me. After all that, the Levites would gather and sing these songs. Every day a different psalm. So you can see that, and that relates to our topic, that on Shabbat they would say Psalm 97, because Psalm 97 says, Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, a psalm, song for the Sabbath day. This is a song for the world to come, the day which will be completely Shabbat and rest for all eternity. And that's how the tractate ends. Yeah? So on Shabbat, in a way, we have the opportunity to feel the flavor of Shabbat, of the world to come, of the future. So our reality can be chaotic and painful and everything, but on Shabbat we cease from work and we spend time with the family and we eat well and we are in the synagogue and it's a very communal and familial day. So in this day we feel this inner peace that has the taste of the world to come. So now I would like to take a demonstration of how the liturgy appears, or how the psalms appear in the liturgy, and how different parts of the psalm have conversation between them. So here you see a stamp that was issued in Israel, and you see the picture here. The depiction is by Lilian. I think he was of Polish descent, if I'm not mistaken. And the picture that is depicted here is, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and cried. That's the most sad psalm that we have in the book, Psalm 137, that sort of encapsulate the tragic experience of exile. So what I would like us to do, to try to do, and Adam is wonderful with the translation. It's a bit complicated to do it in jumping from languages, is to relate to two psalms that are incorporated in Jewish liturgy. And both of them are recited traditionally before the grace after meal. How is it done? You finish eating, the family has a dinner or what have you, and the next thing would be the grace after meal, the liturgy that is recited after eating. Unlike Christianity, the major part of the prayer that is related to food is done after eating, not before. Maybe because Jews are never sure that they can really finish their meal, so they keep the blessing, the main blessing for later. So on weekdays, 137 by the rivers of Babylon is recited, and on Shabbat and festival, a much happier psalm is recited, and that's 126. We will see both of them in a second, but I just want to show you how it often looks in a prayer book. I don't know how well you can see it, but you can see that they are printed one next to the other. Yes, so in a way, you see the human experience, or the Jewish experience, as the juxtaposition, you put one next to the other, of the tragedy on one hand and the redemption and the hope for the futures on the other. So in a way, it sort of plays as two sides of the same coin. On weekdays, the sad one is recited, and on Shabbat and festival, the happier one is recited. So maybe I'll read a few verses in Hebrew and then you can complete it. I only copied the first 6 ones. I think the last 3 ones don't really relate here, and some scholars believe that they belong to a different psalm. So here we have the 6 verses of the sad psalm and then the 6 verses of the happier one. I'll read just the first 2 verses, and maybe you can read the entire psalm. על נהרות בבל שם ישבנו, גם בכינו בזוכרנו את ציון, על ערבים בתוכה תלינו כינורותינו. So we see the Levites are saying, how can we sing? How can we play? Just like warriors hang their weapons in times of peace, so the Levites hang their instruments in time of exile. We cannot sing. And it's also a very sadistic, I think, depiction of the capture, those who captured us, the Babylonians. They say, "Oh, sing to us, show us what you got." Yeah, and how can we even sing on a strange land? And then they pledge allegiance to Jerusalem. Thank you. So you can ask yourself, how is it related to the situation? We just finished our meal, everybody's satisfied, we're happy, we ate well. Why do we need to mention the distress of exile? And in a way, it is one of the major themes that you see in Jewish liturgy, that the individual is part of the communal. The personal is part of the national. So even though we are satisfied and we are happy, we don't forget the distress of our people. It's always in the back of our minds. It's never departed from our wishes. It's the same as wedding. You know, the happiest day of a lot of people, what do we mention? We mention the Jerusalem. Yeah, the verses from this psalm are recited also in the wedding ceremony. So that's one side of the coin. That's the tragic and the sad and the heavy one. On Shabbat, on weekdays, we have a different one, which has many, many liturgical adaptations, many tunes, and that's Shir HaMa'alot. Shir HaMa'alot בשוב אדוני את ציון, היינו כחולמים, אז ימלא שחוק פינו ולשוננו רינה. אז יאמרו בגויים, הגדיל אדוני לעשות עם אלה. So this is a song of relief. When God returns to Zion, and before this presentation, Adam and I spoke, and we said that it's hard to translate it because we don't know if we should speak about past tense, as it is in the Polish translation, or are we talking about something that did not happen and is yet to come? So we're talking about a future event. Mm-hmm. Is the redemption, is the coming back to Zion already happened, or is it something that will be in the future? But this way or another, we celebrate the return to Zion, and we know that it begins with crying, but then it comes with great joy and peace. So when you juxtapose them, when you put these two psalms one next to the other, in a way you see a completion of the Jewish experience. And let me just tell you that Psalm 126 was proposed by some people to be the national anthem of the state of Israel. However, it is much more complicated than this, because the tragic psalm is not only tragic, and the happy psalm is not only happy. And we will show it in a second. That's right. So first of all, the resemblance of the two psalms is striking. And it looks like the conversation between them did not begin in the prayer book. It began already in the book of Psalms. In both of them, you have large bodies of water. On 137, it's the rivers of Babylon. On 126, it's the springs, it's the rivers in the Negev, in the wilderness, in the desert. In both of them, you have laughter. In the sad ones is the enemies, the captives are requiring for us, are sort of mocking us. It's a Schadenfreude, they're mocking us. And here, it's a true joy. Az yimaleh schok finu, our mouth will be filled with laughter. And we will sing. We want to sing. We will sing spontaneously. Nobody will have to tell us to sing. In both of them, you have laughter. In both of them, you have crying. In both of them, the time where it happens is not so clear, if as I said, if it already happened or it will happen, or where exactly it happens. There is an atmosphere of a dream. You see in verse 1, it says, Hayinu kecholmim, we were like dreamers. It's not clear where you are exactly in the reality, because if you look in verse 1, on 137, it says, Al Naharot Bavel, Sham yashavnu gam bachinu. On the river, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and cried. So if it says that Babylon is there, what does it mean about us? Where are we now? Are we in the land of Israel? Are we still in exile? All of this is a bit in a dreamy situation, a dreamy mode. And I forgot to say, another very strong resemblance between them is the testimony of the non-Jews. Here you have on verse 3 the maybe unpleasant, sadistic attitudes toward the exiles, but on this one, the Israelites are listening to the Gentiles, to the non-Jews who speak about what happens to them. Yes, it's verse 2, and only then they can fathom and understand the great miracle that happened to them. They have to listen to the Gentiles first in order to understand it. And lastly, what seems to be so sad and tragic is maybe not so sad and tragic, because they are sitting on very wealthy and very fruitful rivers, and we know historically that many Jews did not return from the exile in Babylon. They really liked it there. And on the other hand, in the happy psalm, Kafikim Banegev, the rivers in the wilderness, in the desert, is something that appears at once. Adam and I spoke about it yesterday, and it's something that appears at once, it's very, very powerful, but then it disappears, but it's also very dangerous. So we see a bit of ambiguity. The tragic is not completely tragic, and the happy is not completely happy. And peace is somewhere maybe in between.
That's a good example.
I think what it teaches us is that the two sides of reality are sort of in a conversation with each other. Nothing is completely tragic and nothing is completely peaceful and relaxed. Let me just show you, this is just the depiction of the person who sows the seeds, and maybe it's like God who sowed, who spread the Jews into different places of the world. But I wanted to just, and I know we need to finish now, this is the Knesset menorah. The Knesset is the Israeli parliament, and next to it is a great menorah that was contributed by a British Jewish artist, Beno Elkan, and it has many medals that depicts different parts of Jewish history. And one of the branches, you see one next to the other, you see this depiction of Psalm 137. You see the people are sitting and weeping, and these are the rivers of Babylon. And just next to it, like it is in the prayer book, you see here the Nehemiah holding the Cyrus declaration, calling the people to return to Zion and to rebuild Zion. And you see, again, you see the destruction and the construction, the redemption, one next to the other. So that was a very, very quick journey of how the psalms are played in Jewish liturgy, and with one example of a conversation between two sounds that help us to construct our understanding of the world and what does it mean to live, to ascribe and to aspire for peace. So thank you very much. You're welcome to visit my website, Dishankuya. Thank you, and all the best to all of you. And shalom.
Thank you very much.